Mr. Mayor,
your
Mr.
opponents
Mayor.
have been critical of your record in New York, saying you oversaw a sanctuary city and you welcomed illegal immigrants while you were mayor of New York. In particular, Fred Thompson and Mitt Romney have been very critical of your record.
Well, of course, neither one of them had the record of reducing crime that I had, did they? Not even close. I mean, I reduced crime more than any other mayor, any other governor in that period of time. I may have reduced crime more than anyone that's ever governed a city or a state. And I did it because I had sensible policies. They have the luxury of just sort of saying anything they want, but they have no record for reducing crime. I have a record for reducing crime, reducing illegality, and obviously the policies that I used, even with regard to illegal immigration, must have worked. Shootings were reduced in New York City by 74%, homicides by 67%, overall crime by 60%. We went from being the crime capital of America to being the safest large city in the United States. Actually, we turned out to be, by the time I was finished, one of the safest cities in the United States. Safer than about 180 other cities with populations of as little as 100,000, 200,000. So the policies that I utilized with regard to illegal immigration were in the context of overall policies that probably were the most successful in the history of the country in creating an orderly, legal, lawful society. And the things they're talking about come from just talking about it. The things that I'm talking about, because they have no record of reducing crime. They have no record of reducing illegality anywhere on the scale that I did. So the policies that we utilized were policies that worked. And the only reason they were necessary is because nobody was ending illegal immigration. This has to be done. This has to be done at the federal level. And there is nobody better qualified to do it than I am. None of the others have ever dealt with a problem like this and changed behavior. I changed behavior. I changed the behavior of criminals in New York. I changed the behavior of welfare recipients in New York. Moved 640,000 people off welfare, many of them to work. So what I'm talking about, when I talk about a virtual system of identification, I've actually created things like that before. The program that I established in New York City, ComStat, to reduce crime, would be exactly the kind of program, a border stat system where they could end illegal immigration. The finger imaging system that I used to reduce welfare, that reduced 640,000 people on welfare, would be a good model. It'd have to be expanded, but a good model for the tamper-proof ID card that could be established. So when I talk about this, I talk about it by having gotten results that were equally difficult to get, like ending illegal immigration. They have to engage in talking about things they're promising because they've never really done anything like that before. And I understand that. They just have not had that experience.
Mayor, what's your reaction to Thomas Keane, co-chairman of the 9/11 Commission, endorsing John McCain?
He has a right to endorse anybody he wants. And John McCain is a fine person. He has lots of endorsements. I have lots of endorsements.
Are you disappointed?
No. The governor's son endorses me. He's one of my most active supporters in New Jersey. We're very thankful for that. Hey, there are a lot of Republicans. I'm not going to get all the votes or all the endorsements. Right now, we're pretty happy about our position in New Jersey. And Tom Kane's son, who ran for the Senate a year or two ago, is one of my co-chairmen in New Jersey. So I guess we're dividing up the family.
Mr. Mayor, we down here on the border, we rely heavily on trade with Mexico. Our economy is built upon immigrant labour. When we read in the national press on the campaign trail, the mood of the country seems to be very different. Can you tell us, touring the country, how ugly is the rhetoric? How anti-immigrant and anti-Mexico are you finding things?
Well, look, there's always that. In any society, there are always people who get excessive on one side or the other. The reality is that most Americans are very, very balanced people. Most Americans value immigration. Most Americans are immigrants, or the children of immigrants, or the grandchildren of immigrants, or close enough in their family history, like I am, we understand the value of immigration. So I don't find that to be the prevalent notion. I think there's a real need, however, to end illegal immigration. And it's not just because of this terrorist situation. That is one reason for it. It's because it doesn't work. It doesn't work for anybody. It creates a bad situation in many places for the people who live there already, and it's a bad situation for the people who are coming in that way. It has them living a life of being a fugitive, living a life below ground. And the reality is, whether we could have ended it in the past or not, and there's a question as to whether we could have, whether we would have had the technology to do it. We can do it now, and I'm the best person to do it, because I have accomplished things like that in the past. Nobody thought it was possible to reduce crime in New York City. We ended up reducing crime more than any other city, any other state, I think, in the history of the country. But certainly, anyone in the late 90s. Nobody thought it was possible to reduce welfare in New York. Maybe you don't know the scope of it. You know how many people were on welfare in New York City? 1.1 million people. That's bigger than most cities in America. We cut that by 640,000 people. And we did it in a way where we used programs like finger imaging. We used programs like workfare. We can end illegal immigration. And when we do, we're going to have a much better situation. First of all, even those Americans now who maybe are excessively angry, we'll be able to calm them down because they'll see an orderly process working. And we'll restore, even for them, the kind of sense of how important legal immigration is. And you don't have to do that for most Americans. You know, we're going to celebrate Thanksgiving in 2 days, right? On Thursday. They were immigrants. They were immigrants from England coming here in order to create a better life for themselves and their families. They, you know, John Winthrop saw the shining city on a hill that Ronald Reagan used to talk about. So we understand that that's still in people's minds and hearts all over the world. We want to keep them. But you can't do it any longer by allowing people to come in who don't identify themselves. We have to get people to identify themselves. Once we cross over that barrier, we get to that tipping point where we train people that you can come in legally, we're going to see a much better situation for all of us.
Mayor, what surprised you about what you saw?
The veterans, the hospital they need?
Well, veterans need all our support. We owe a debt of great gratitude to our veterans. We should make sure that there is nothing that they need that they don't have. They have to be taken care of. First of all, it's an obligation of citizenship for all of us to make sure that our veterans are taken care of because they've taken care of us. It's much like these men in uniform that you see here, these men here who command people in uniform. They put their lives at risk for us, the military, police officers, firefighters. So we owe them our support and to make sure that their services after they leave active duty are excellent. And then, if we want to increase the size of the military, as we do, and get more volunteers, we need to make sure we're fulfilling our contract. Our society is fulfilling our contract with those who have served.
Let's do one more.
On your tour today, what surprised you the most about what you saw or heard? What did you learn that you didn't know before?
Well, I've been on the border before. I remember one time I was responsible for the Immigration and Naturalization Service, and I've been in various parts of this issue in many ways. The length of it, whenever you see it, it reminds you of the length of it. But I'll tell you, honestly, it reminded me that this can be done. This is a wide open space. The kind of equipment that exists would stop illegal immigration here. Coming to see it, I can kind of look at what has to be done with the photographic equipment, the motion detection equipment, the heat-seeking equipment, a border stat system like my ComStat system, and I'd say I come away from it, I'm not going to tell you it's easy to do, it's not, but it's certainly well within the bounds of the technology that now exists in the world for us to end illegal immigration in this portion of the border. This would not be hard to do in that sense. It would take a long time, it would take a big expenditure of time and money, but it's possible. Look at how wide open this is. When I say heat-seeking equipment, motion detection equipment, and photographic equipment, I mean equipment that can actually photograph in the dark. It can tell you that people are crossing the border. You can then organize your Border Patrol and the law enforcement that work with them to respond to that before it actually happens. And then the times that they don't respond to it before it happens, they can readjust their assignments so they cover that portion of the border where people are now starting to come over. And that's the way we reduce crime in New York City. We used a ComStat system. It had a lot of parts to it, but part of it was to predict the behavior of people in order to stop it before it actually happened. And that would be capable of being done here. And if you come here and look at it, you realize that that solution is technologically within our grasp right now. If we have the political will to do it, and if we have a president that knows how to make things happen and get results. And I'm the person who has gotten results.